Hello, this is Jacob with LineDancer, a network change and configuration management solution that scales from the smallest business up to the largest enterprise. Today we're going to give you a brief overview of LineDancer's most commonly used features, concluding with an example of how LineDancer can assist with setting up or changing NetFlow configurations on multiple devices in a single operation. We'll start with discovering devices on your network, capturing their configurations, and going over comparisons. Following that, we'll touch on restoring previous configurations to your devices and having those devices meet compliance checks. Then what we'll do is have LineDancer execute commands across multiple devices at once. After that, there will be an introduction to LineDancer's terminal proxy, a very quick way to jump directly into your device's CLI while simultaneously archiving the session. And finally, we'll show a quick example of the power of LineDancer's Smart Change and how setting up NetFlow on multiple devices can be done with just a few clicks. After installing LineDancer, you're going to want to discover your devices. Device discovery can be initiated by clicking on the Discover New Devices menu item under the Inventory menu. A Discovery Devices dialog will open where you can add IP addresses and address ranges to be discovered, as well as the SNMP community string for the discovery. Notice how the checkbox labeled Crawl the network from the specified addresses is selected, which will enable the discovery engine to use peer and neighbor information from the discovered devices to then allow for further device discovery. After clicking OK, the discovery job will start and results will be displayed in real time as it finds devices on your network. LineDancer primarily uses CLI-based access, SSH or Telnet, to capture configurations from devices in your network. In order to do this, you need to supply login credentials for your devices to LineDancer. Selecting the Credentials menu item under Inventory menu will open the Credentials Management dialog. Here you can specify the usernames and passwords required to connect to your devices. There are many ways to associate credentials with devices in LineDancer, from static lists to subnets and wildcards, all to fit your company's management setup. Once credentials have been configured, LineDancer is ready to snapshot the configuration of your network. From the Device menu, selecting Backup will initiate configuration capture from selected devices, or from all devices in your network if none are selected. Then, similar to the discovery job output, real-time status will be displayed as LineDancer captures device configurations. And as long as LineDancer is connected to a device, it might as well capture some additional information while it's there. Double-clicking on a device after a backup opens the Device Detail view. On the left-hand side, you can see the configuration files captured from the device. And on the right-hand side, you can see the image of the device from our device image database, and information such as make, model, software version, serial number, and memory. Above the image on the right, you can see a set of tabs. These contain other information captured from the device backup. The Hardware tab contains details about the chassis, daughter cards, GBICs, SFPs, power supplies, and in some devices, fan trays and controllers. The Interfaces tab contains details about the interfaces present on the device, both physical and virtual. And finally, the ARP Mac VLAN tab contains information about, well, ARP tables, MAC tables, and VLAN member ports. Keeping track of configuration changes and change history is one of the essential features of any NCCM product. Along with configuration history, configuration comparison is a valuable tool, especially when troubleshooting network issues that may have been caused by a configuration error. Double-clicking on a device in the inventory and opening the Device Detail view, we can then see that between March 12th and March 13th, a configuration change was made to this device. We can select both configurations with a control click and the click comparison button in the toolbar above the history view. And a comparison is opened with a split view older configuration on the left and a more recent configuration on the right. The green line on the right indicates configurations that were added in the more recent version of the configuration. As can be seen from the key at the bottom right, the view provides coloring for added and removed and modified configurations. While not displayed in this example, the view provides highlighting down to the sub-line level, indicating, for example, that an IP address in an existing line of configuration was changed. And finally, often configuration files are quite long, so scrolling through them to find the changed lines can be cumbersome. On the far right border of the comparison view, LineDancer provides an overview of changes in the configuration file by adding clickable markers that jump directly to the changed portion of the configuration. One of the benefits of having a complete configuration history is the ability to restore or roll back to a previous configuration. You can see here that we have selected the previous configuration for this device. By clicking on the Restore button, we can quickly roll back the device to a previous configuration. Here we see the restore operation against a Cisco device, which includes support for creating an on-device archive before rollback. LineDancer knows the unique syntax and capabilities of devices and leverages those to provide rollback operations in the most reliable way possible. Moving on to compliance, LineDancer includes out-of-the-box compliance rules, as well as the capability of defining your own rules and policies to enforce your organization's best practices. Compliance is configured through the Compliance tab among the top row of navigation tabs. Configuring compliance generally starts on the Rule Sets tab, where you can begin to create rules that encapsulate your best practices. Clicking on the Create button brings up the Rule Set Creation dialog. Here we are creating a rule to ensure that SNMP read-write access is not enabled on our devices. You can see that we have selected that this rule will apply specifically to Cisco iOS devices, and that this will be applied against the running config of those devices. Clicking OK leads to the rule editor, where expressions somewhat akin to firewall rules are added to check the configuration. Clicking on the plus button creates a new match expression. And you can see that we have entered a line of text that we wanted to match, and that we are settling on the action to violation on match. This is saying if this line of text is found in the running config of a Cisco iOS device, we will consider it a violation. One small point here. You can see in the text of the match expression, the text says SNMP server community, and then tilde string tilde followed by RW. Adding tildes around a piece of text creates a variable of the same name. Any text can become a variable, but feel free to use whatever is meaningful to you or suitable for the context of the expression. The variable portion of the match expression by default matches anything and can be seen by the asterisk in the restriction column. Without diving too deep in here, we'll just note that the type of the variable can be changed from text to things like host name or IP, and the value itself can be checked against CIDR range expressions or regular expressions. Finally, clicking the red save icon will save the rule set. Now, going to the Policy tab, and clicking on the Create button will create a new compliance policy. We'll then click on the plus icon which will allow you to select rule sets to be added to this policy. We'll then skip it here for brevity, but the Devices tab lets you use an advanced search queries to pinpoint a specific set of devices that this policy will apply to. Again, clicking on this red save icon will then save the policy edits. Back in the main policy view, selecting a policy and clicking the Enable button will turn on enforcement of the policy. Configurations will be checked immediately upon enablement, and more importantly, will be checked in real time whenever a device configuration change is detected by LineDancer. In addition to the compliance view, the devices view will reflect compliance violations with these red badge markers next to the devices violating a policy. Double-clicking a marker will open the configuration and highlight the portion that is in violation, and indicate which policy and rule set is being violated. That's a quick view of compliance, but for more details, you can watch more in-depth videos at logicvein.com. One of the tasks frequently needed by engineers for both troubleshooting and configuration change is the execution of the same commands across a number of devices. Normally, this would require logging into a device, possibly entering enable mode, and executing the desired command, followed then by repeating the same procedure on a number of devices. In LineDancer, the engineer can select a number of devices and, using the command runner tool from the change menu, enter a series of commands. For example, show IP cache flow. And with a single click in just a few seconds, we'll be viewing the output from each device. Of course, the commands are not limited to show commands and could easily be a series of change commands that are applied across devices in seconds. Another feature that you'll wonder how you live without once you started using LineDancer is Terminal Proxy. By right-clicking on a device and choosing Open Terminal from the pop-up menu, you can immediately jump into the device's CLI. Because you have already configured LineDancer with device credentials, LineDancer performs an automated login and drops you right into the CLI. LineDancer can launch PuTTY, TerraTerm, the native Mac shell, and many other third-party terminals. The neat trick is that you're actually proxying through LineDancer, which means the entire session is automatically logged and indexed for searching. Clicking on the Terminal Proxy tab, you can view a history of all sessions, including destination device, user, client IP address, and start and end timestamps. Double-clicking on a session entry opens a complete capture of what occurred during the session, including commands executed and device responses. And logs are searchable by a variety of query parameters, including full text search, all of which are exportable. The last feature we're going to show you today is what we call Smart Change. On the Jobs tab, under the Job Management, we've pre-created a Smart Change job to configure NetFlow on a Cisco device for this demo. If we double-click on the job, we can open up the editor where its contents are defined. Now, I know while this looks busy, the workflow is actually very simple. First, we pasted a boilerplate configuration in the commands editor on the right, then by highlighting a piece of that configuration and clicking on the plus button at the lower left, we defined a series of replacement values, which are also viewable on the left, that we want to be able to specifically interact whenever the Smart Change is run. Going back to the devices view, we can select a number of Cisco devices that we want to configure for NetFlow using the NetFlow command template that we just defined in our Smart Change. Clicking on the Smart Change menu, we can see our new Smart Change template listed. Selecting that Smart Change template, a dialog box opens and presents the engineer with entry fields for the replacement values defined in the template. The fields are all text fields here, but you can define a drop-down list of values, create checkboxes, restrict entry fields to validate IP addresses, and much more. After filling in the fields and clicking Execute, the commands in the template are run on all selected devices using the specified replacement values. This will not only save time eliminating typing dozens of commands, but also eliminates errors due to typos or omitted commands. It allows your senior engineers to define templates that encompass your conventions and best practices and can be run by less experienced engineers who are operators or are merely filling in a set of fields. I would like to thank you for your time today. Thank you for watching. If you have any other questions, please visit www.logicvein.com. Have a great day.